Do you know that a small city once used simple creatures to bring the entire Roman Empire to its knees? From flying insects to deadly spiders and scorpions, these small creatures had been used to conquer and defend kingdoms. Beautiful yet deadly flowers and roots of plants were also used as weapons in antiquity. Some of these plants were so famous and deadly that they made it into TV shows such as Harry Potter and Games of Thrones. This video will cover the top 4 baddest ancient wars where biological weapons led to a decisive victory. The last bioweapon is by far the deadliest, and even today, the mention of its name strikes fear in the heart of even the greatest scientists. Our story will begin with Hatra, a tiny desert city that defeated the mighty Roman armies with flying insects, scorpions, and spiders. Towards the end of the 2nd century AD, the Roman Emperor Severus led his powerful Roman legions to attack a small desert city called Hatra, near modern-day Mosul in Iraq. Severus was confident. He had already destroyed many cities and villages and thought Hatra would be an easy victory. At this time, the Roman Empire was the superworld power. No other army had as many soldiers or as advanced weapons as the Romans. They had the best fighters, chariots, and naval ships. The Roman soldiers were full of energy and confidence after defeating so many cities. Hatra, on the other hand, was just a tiny city with few people and very few weapons. The people of Hatra were terrified when they heard that the Romans were coming. Stories of the Romans' victories spread fear, and many thought they had no chance to survive. But their leader, filled with courage, told them not to give up. He reminded them that they were blessed with rocks and poisonous insects, including the deadliest scorpion in the world, the Deathstalker. The sculptors of the city were called to make clay pots bombs. These pots were filled with poisonous winged insects and deadly scorpions. Every poisonous crawling creature on the desert rocks was gathered. Large centipedes such as the scolopendra, known for their painful and dangerous bite, were on the list. How these people handled these poisonous creatures still puzzles historians till today. When Severus and his army arrived, they surrounded the city and demanded that the people surrender. He threatened to kill everyone if they didn't. But the people of Hatra refused to give up. Severus then ordered his soldiers to attack the city with everything they had, trying to break through its defenses. One big advantage was that Hatra was on top of a mountain and had tall, strong walls surrounding it. The Romans brought their battering rams and repeatedly struck the city gate, but the gate couldn't be destroyed. After many attempts, they decided to scale through the fence. They leant many ladders on the wall and started climbing. The people of Hatra fought bravely. They threw stones and shot arrows at the Romans, who were like a swarm of ants crawling up the wall. The arrowheads were dipped in poisonous plant juices such as wolfsbane and venoms of snakes. As with ancient warfare, these people used these natural poisons to increase the lethality of their weapons. After the stones and arrows were nearly finished, they dropped the clay pots. These bombs explode on impact and release their unpleasant contents. Poisonous flying creatures and deadly scorpions poured out, stinging the Roman soldiers. The insects attacked the Romans' eyes and other unprotected areas. Imagine a bee stinging your eyes while a scorpion crawls into your trousers and stings you in between your legs. Chaos and pain spread through the Roman army. Coupled with the severe, harsh weather of the desert and the bites and stings, the soldiers became sick and many died. Severus, after suffering heavy losses, realized he could not take Hatra. Defeated and humiliated, he gave up and returned home, leaving the brave people of Hatra in peace. The people of Hatra were lucky to have these little creatures. The Carthaginians, on the other hand, did not have poisonous insects and spiders, yet they destroyed entire Roman legions using the root of a plant. The Carthaginians were an ancient people from Carthage, a powerful city-state in what is now modern-day Tunisia. Known for their strategic brilliance and fierce resistance, they fought numerous wars against the mighty Roman Empire. During one of these Punic Wars, the Carthaginians employed a clever and dark tactic, harnessing the power of a common plant in their environment. As a large Roman force advanced toward them, the Carthaginian soldiers knew they were outnumbered and needed a way to defeat their enemies without direct confrontation. Therefore, they prepared vast quantities of wine and poured in mandrake root extract, a plant with a powerful sedative effect. The root is known for its ability to cause deep sleep or intense drowsiness. When consumed, even a small dose could incapacitate a person. Once the wine was ready, the Carthaginians pretended to retreat, leaving behind their camps and the wine as if they had fled in fear. The Roman soldiers celebrated their apparent victory, thinking they had scared off the Carthaginians. They entered the abandoned camp, and when they saw the barrels of wine, they indulged without hesitation, believing it was left behind in the rush. But as they drank, the mandrake root began to take effect. The Roman soldiers slowly fell into a deep, drowsy state. Some passed out completely, while others were too groggy to even stand. At the perfect moment, the Carthaginians returned and found their enemies either asleep or too weak to resist. With little effort, the Carthaginians slaughtered the incapacitated enemies, winning the battle with ease. The strategy used in this next war carried the devil's own seal of approval. Around 590 BC, the people of Athens found themselves at war with the city of Caria. The people of Caria were strong, and their city was well fortified, making it difficult to conquer. The Athenians knew they needed to come up with a clever plan to defeat them. So they decided to turn to Mother Nature, except this time it was not for healing but for destruction. The Carians got their water from the Pyrrhus River. The Solon of Athens discovered an aqueduct leading to the river. Seeing an opportunity, the Athenian legislator Solon instructed the soldiers, and they gathered large quantities of Hellebris roots and crushed them into a fine paste. Under the cover of the night, the Athenians poured this paste into the aqueduct, and the water carried the poison to the Pyrrhus River. The Carians, thinking nothing of their water supply, drank and cooked from the river. Soon after, violent diarrhea hit the community. People from various homes, young and old, civilians and soldiers, were all rushing to use the pit holes. Confusion spread as no one knew where the sickness came from, and so they kept using the tainted water. Some magicians said it was a curse from the gods, while others had different explanations. The sickness spread fast, leaving the city's defenders weak and vulnerable. With their bodies weakened and energy drained, the Carians could no longer fight as effectively as before. They were in no condition to defend their city, and the Athenians launched their attack. It wasn't long before Caria was defeated. We shall conclude with the deadliest biological attack in human history. Despite the advancement in science, no evil scientist has ever managed to replicate its horrors till date. In 1346, a fierce conflict unfolded on the edges of the Black Sea. The city of Kaffa, which is modern-day Feodosia in southern Ukraine, found itself under siege by a powerful Mongol army led by the Golden Horde. The Mongols, renowned for their unyielding strategies and ruthless conquests, had one goal in mind: to bring Kaffa to its knees. The walls of Kaffa stood tall, and the people inside felt somewhat secure, believing they could hold off the Mongol invaders. But beyond the walls, something terrifying began to stir in the Mongol camp, a force far deadlier than any sword or spear. The bubonic plague had arrived, ravaging the Mongol soldiers. It crept through their ranks like a shadow, bringing fever, swelling, and death. Bodies began to pile up, and the camp was stricken with panic. The plague was killing faster than any battle ever could. As the Mongol leaders watched their warriors fall, a desperate and diabolical idea formed. If they couldn't defeat Kaffa by conventional means, they would turn their own misfortune into a weapon. The dead bodies of their plague-ridden soldiers would become their new army. The Mongols ordered their catapults to be loaded, not with stones or fire, but with the decaying bodies of their fallen comrades. The plague victims were hurled over the city walls and into the heart of Kaffa, where the stench of death soon filled the streets. At first, the people of Kaffa were confused. Why were the Mongols throwing their dead into the city? Thousands upon thousands of these dead bodies were lobbed into the city. The besieged people dumped as many of these dead bodies into the sea as they could, while many remained scattered in every corner. And soon the rotting core tainted the air and poisoned the water. Rats also fed on the dead bodies, and fleas from these rats infected humans. It didn't take long for the horror to unfold. Within days, the symptoms began to appear. People who had touched the dead bodies started to fall ill, their skin erupting in blackened sores. Fevers soared, and the city's inhabitants were gripped with terror. The plague spread like wildfire, sweeping through the population faster than anyone could escape. The once bustling city streets became silent, filled with the sick and dying. The Mongol army watched from the outside as their grim plan succeeded. The city, once defiant and strong, was now paralyzed with fear and sickness. The defenders were no longer focused on holding off the Mongols. They were too busy burying their dead. In the end, Kaffa was forced to surrender, not to the Mongol soldiers, but to the unseen enemy brought upon them. The plague had turned the tide of the siege in the most terrifying way imaginable. The Genoese, those who survived, fled the city carrying the plague with them on their ships as they sailed back to Europe. Little did they know this escape would spread the Black Death further, igniting a pandemic that would wipe out about 30 million in Europe, more than half the population of the continent at the time. It didn't stop in Europe, it killed millions of people in North Africa and Asia. What began as a tactical siege in Kaffa had sparked one of the deadliest events in human history. Thanks for watching and consider subscribing, this will help the channel a lot.